I'm Vinnie Politan, live here at CourtTV, getting ready for our third hour of the program. Hour 3, that's when we bring in our think tank, experienced attorneys with strong opinions, to say the least, as we take a look at the big stories of the day. We've got them all lined up, ready to go. Hour 3 starts now. In Rexburg, Idaho, Doomsday cult mom Lori Vallow Daybell and her new husband Chad locked up. The focus of a murder investigation involving the deaths of Vallow's 2 children, Tylee and JJ. Tonight, we take a closer look at Chad Daybell's spiritual beliefs and how they may have influenced everything that has happened in this tragic case.
And in October, Chad said something to me on the phone that was disturbing. And I don't remember what he said, but it felt like a come on. And I was like, did I hear that right?
And we examine what life is like behind bars for Lori Vallow Daybell, who is now turning 47 years old. In Atlanta, Georgia, taser controversy and the shooting death of Rayshard Brooks. Are tasers deadly weapons or not? Tonight, we answer the question. And in Point Loma, California, a father puts his 2-year-old twin daughters in the car and drives it off a cliff. We have the video of the heroic rescue and details of the charges against the father.
You know, he couldn't believe he didn't die, and that, yeah, his intention was that he was going to die and his daughters were going to die with him.
Plus, the 13th Juror Speaks. Tonight, we take a look at your reaction on social media. Welcome back to the program. Great to have you with us. And the case in Idaho, Lori Vallow Daybell, the so-called Doomsday cult mom, she is locked up. Her husband, Chad Daybell, is locked up as well. And he's locked up because Lori's 2 children were found buried in his backyard. And this is such a strange, convoluted, bizarre story. I mean, any investigator from a police or sheriff's office or the FBI that you talk to, any reporter who covers true crime stories, they look at this one and they say, what? Really? I've never seen anything like this before. And trying to understand it is difficult because it's bizarre, it's tragic, and it's cold, it's calculated. It's so many different things all at once. So to try to understand it, what we've been doing here for the last 6 months is trying to get a better feel for who these people are, what they believe, and why they do what they do. So tonight we're going to take a look at Chad Daybell and his ministry, right? This is a man who was LDS and was kind of an offshoot of that. And we're going to take a closer look at his church, what he believes, and people who were close to him, who at one point shared similar beliefs with him, what they thought about him and what he was doing and how he changed. And I think by taking a look at this, we may get a little more insight into the world of Chad Daybell and maybe a little more insight into what happened to those 2 children, Tylee and JJ. Chanley Painter has the story.
He had sold his soul. He had made his choice.
I think he meant to do good. Somewhere along the way, something's changed.
Those who knew Chad Daybell say he began his ministry with pure intentions.
I would say he has spiritual gifts and abilities. I've seen them in action in very personal situations, and I felt their genuineness in sort of a profound way.
Like Daybell, Eric Smith was raised in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, known to outsiders as the Mormon Church.
The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, as the name indicates, believes that we are living in a particular moment in the world's history when God will return again, and that people need to prepare for that return.
The two shared beliefs that challenged LDS doctrine, including theories about the end of the world and reincarnation. Beliefs that Smith said led to his excommunication from the church.
That was what brought us together. And so this idea of wanting to warn and help spread that message.
Now Smith sees his old friend in a far more sinister light.
When someone is gifted or has that ability to discern messages from heaven, I think they are equally as open to messages from darkness.
Chad Daybell was arrested on June 9th after human remains were found on his East Idaho property. They were the remains of 16-year-old Tylee Ryan and 7-year-old J.J. Vallow. The children were missing for just a few weeks when Chad married their mother, Lori Vallow.
You know, I feel like he lived this double life.
Court records contain shocking revelations about the couple's alleged religious beliefs. According to a probable cause affidavit, the couple claimed to belong to the Church of the Firstborn. Their mission in the church was to lead the 144,000 in the end times and to rid the world of zombies. The allegations raised questions about where those beliefs came from.
As for the notion of ridding the world of evil people, that's not the object in Latter-day Saint theology of what you do before Jesus comes.
The Church of the Firstborn exists within the LDS, but Mormon Studies professor Kathleen Flake says she has never heard of zombies in LDS doctrine.
If there's anything that lends itself within the mainstream or even within the doctrines of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, it's probably the sense of immediacy they have about the last days.
Eric Smith isn't the only one with second thoughts about Daybell.
I'd like people to understand that his message is very different from the message I share in my podcasts, my blogs.
Smith met Daybell through author Julie Rowe, an energy practitioner who was also recently excommunicated from the church. The Daybells published Rowe's books through their imprint, the Spring Creek Book Company.
There was something about his energy that always kind of like bugged me, but I would look past it because I was picking up on his potential and that he had like a pretty good heart.
But in March 2019, Rowe says she cut ties with Chad after a series of red flags, including visions of him with Lori Vallow and others.
It was very clear to me that not only was he not going to apologize to me or admit that he was having an affair with Lori or anybody else.
Rowe also claims Chad made unwanted sexual advances towards her in December 2018. Daybell's lawyer did not respond to a request for comment on the allegations.
I think initially they thought they were light, and they were deceived.
I have my theory about Chad Daybell. I think he created this whole belief system, and he started getting some attention, and he loved the attention from the ladies, and he tried to use this sort of celebrity that he had, and we're seeing it, and he ends up hooking up with the blonde, Lori Vallow. All right, that's my theory. My guest may or may not agree with me. Let's bring in our think tank tonight. We've got a strong one tonight. There we go. Monica Lindstrom, criminal defense attorney, joining us from Phoenix, Arizona. Also with us, Holly Waltman, great criminal defense attorney in Atlanta. And Jamie White joining us from Michigan. Great to have you all here. Monica, let me start with you. LDS dominates that part of Idaho. We're going to have a trial. Many of those jurors, if not all those jurors, may end up being LDS. What do you think they're going to think about the guy who's part of this offshoot, who believes in zombies and is having an affair and is using his religion to try to make advances to women while he's married to Tammy, who, by the way, unfortunately dies shortly after all of this is happening?
Well, my guess is they're going to look at him and not like him, or I don't know, maybe even hate him, or a strong word like that, because they'll probably see that what he's doing is bringing a very negative context to their religion. They are LDS. They believe in LDS. LDS is a good religion. It doesn't go after zombies. We just heard the professional talk about that. That's not part of the belief system. But Chad Daybell was the one that was casting this light and staying at least true enough to LDS to make it seem, at least in the court of public opinion, that he was similar to LDS, or that's what LDS is, and it's just not. So I think any potential jurors are going to be asked if they are LDS and how they feel about anything they've heard him say or about the offshoot or how they feel about offshoots in general. And then for any of the jurors that are on there, good luck trying to get on their good side, not only because we're dealing with dead babies here, a 7-year-old and a 17-year-old, but you're also in a way besmirching the LDS values and ideas.
Holly Waltman, what do you think of my theory about Chad Daybell? He's pretty much kind of nerdy, you know. He's got a bad haircut, he's got the dad genes, and now all of a sudden he starts writing some of these books. He's got a following, and I've heard descriptions whenever the groups would get together, he'd always be surrounded by a group of ladies. Now he's having affairs, and all of a sudden he hooks up with Lori Vallow. He's trying to get like the cool haircut, and he's starting to dress a little bit better. I mean, to me, at the heart of all this, that's what this is all about. This has nothing to do with religion, visions, end of the world. He's just trying to get the girl.
That is one theory, Vinny. But what I want to say is the LDS community is going to separate themselves from him. They are going to say, that is not us. That is not what we stand for. That is not our religion. I think that Chad is very persuasive, and sure, he has tried to, increase his odds at being Time Magazine's Father of the Year. Is he there? Absolutely not. Is he ever going to get there? No. But his friends are doing him a great favor, and this is what people aren't talking about quite yet. We're going to be talking about it, and if I'm his defense attorney, I'm already preparing for this. His friends are helping with the mens rea of this crime. Sure, it's passionate. Sure, it is very intimate and serious and really disturbing because it has to do with children. But his friends are helping him. If he doesn't have the mens rea to commit the crime because he is delusionally under the influence of this fake religion, then he can't be, by definition of the law, guilty of the crimes he's accused of.
All right, you want some mens rea? I got some mens rea for you. Jamie, I'm going to let you respond to this one. This is Julie Rowe, again, one of the friends, here describing a conversation she had with Chad Daybell about Tammy Daybell. Now remember, this is while she's alive, but Chad all of a sudden is predicting her future.
Right.
I love Tammy. She was amazing. She's still amazing. She is in a beautiful place of light, and she has earned it. It was like the spring or fall of 2017. Chad came to me and said that he had had a vision that Tammy had died in a car accident. 3 weeks before Tammy died, I was on the phone with Chad, and I was prompted to ask him if he still saw Tammy dying, and that's when he said what he did to me. And he always put it in his life plan. It wasn't, I have a plan to kill Tammy. It was my life plan, right? My eternal progression plan. When he said, yes, I don't feel that my plan can go forward until Tammy dies, I waited and I saw Lori's energy. I had a vision of her and Chad, and I saw Chad's physical body, and then in his space, so like in his aura, was Lori's spirit. And she was attached. And anytime I see an attachment like that, it's a dark attachment. It's unhealthy.
All right, let's get to that mens rea, Jamie. You're talking about someone who has a vision that his wife of 2 decades is going to die. And guess what happens? Someone comes by and takes a shot at her while she's in her driveway, apparently misses, doesn't kill her, but then she dies a week later. Meanwhile, he's already having an affair with his future wife, who he marries 10 days after after Tammy dies. And before Tammy died, she already bought the wedding ring. How about that? Is that the mens rea that we need?
Vinny, is this the same wife that had the insurance policy for $400,000 or $500,000? Are we talking about the same person?
Oh, yes.
I thought so. Yeah. Look, this is outrageous. Crazy attracts crazy. And I think it's time that as a legal community, we start to talk about different sorts of standards as it applies to children hanging around in these sorts of environments. I know that we have the First Amendment. I'm not disputing that the majority of the people that participate in this religion are good folks, but they saw these podcasts taking place. They saw these publications. They saw this man drift into a prepper world and carry on the way he was carrying on. So I think it's a little disingenuous for them now as a community to say this isn't us when they allowed it to take place. You know, we've seen the Jim Jones, we've seen the David Koreshes, we've seen the Doomsday cults. We see people who won't treat their children because God tells them not to. And, you know, this case is really unfortunate. Somebody could have stepped in. You start talking about zombies, and then the next day you're talking about ridding the world of zombies. And then in that same week, you're talking about your children are zombies. Somebody should have rang that bell. So, you know, the idea that this man was a prophet to his wife's death. Well, you know, maybe he was, but, you know, the whole thing, quite frankly, is outrageous.
You know,
all right, when we come back, we're going to switch gears. All right, last word. Go ahead.
Okay, I want to say that Holly has a really good point, but I want you to think about this. We all think he's crazy because he's talking about zombies and all these strange things and him being this wonderful light. But is that enough for people to think that he mentally was incapable or didn't have the mens rea? So that's just something for us to all think about, because I think Holly is dead on with what she's saying about his friends.
Absolutely. When we come back, we're going to talk about a case out of Georgia involving Rayshard Brooks. Tasers, really a huge issue in that case. And the question is, are tasers deadly weapons or non-lethal weapons? We answer that question when we come back.
Classified as a less lethal weapon and used by law enforcement for decades, tasers are just one of the weapons officers have at their disposal when they're serving and protecting the public.
Drop the knife and come toss him. Thank you.
Lately, tasers are being talked about, with several high-profile cases capturing the public's attention. In Austin, Texas, on March 28, 2019.
Do what you're asking. Do it now. Get on your stomach. Do it now. Roll over.
More recently, in Atlanta, Georgia, on May 30th. And again in Atlanta less than 2 weeks later on June 12th.
Hey, stop fighting. Stop fighting. You're gonna get tased. You're gonna get tased. Stop fighting.
Talk of these incidents has more and more people asking questions about the lethality of tasers and their purpose in law enforcement.
So tasers are a huge issue in the Rayshard Brooks case, and they really came to a head because of two separate cases out of Atlanta. And in the Rayshard Brooks case, the DA, in charging the officers, one officer with murder, basically said that Rayshard Brooks, with the officer's taser, did not pose a threat to the officer, a threat of serious bodily injury or death. Okay, but 2 weeks earlier, he charged some Atlanta officers for using the tasers, and in his press conference, he said Georgia law says that tasers are deadly weapons. So you have the DA in one press conference in one case saying they are deadly weapons, in another press conference in another one saying they didn't pose a threat to these officers, which left a lot of questions out there. So Julie Grant took a closer look at it, and they're really defined as less lethal weapons. So it's obviously not a gun, but it's still considered a lethal weapon, but it's less lethal officially. So the question is, how does all of this impact what happened in the Rayshard Brooks case with Garrett Rolfe? The officer is now charged with felony murder. Let's bring back in our think tank, Monica Lindstrom, Holly Waltman, Jamie White with us. Holly, let me start with you. and you know this, DA, better than all of us. I mean, it's right where you practice. Tasers. An officer is, if an officer is being threatened by a deadly weapon, then they're justified in using deadly force. But so is or is not a taser in Georgia a deadly weapon?
Well, Vinnie, you hit the nail on the head here. Georgia law allows prosecutorial discretion in these type of cases. This very same DA has indicted, prosecuted, and convicted people for using deadly weapons like these, fists, okay? So can a taser be a deadly weapon? Absolutely. If I grab it and I go to shoot it and it malfunctions and I turn it around and I hit someone over the head right in the temple, that is a deadly weapon. That necessitates perhaps an aggravated assault charge. So can a taser be a deadly weapon? Yes. What really happened in this particular case comes down to police training, police procedures, and then prosecutorial discretion. Do I think what happened was correct? That's going to be determined, I think, in the election later this year for him. But we'll see. But yes, they can be deadly weapons with Georgia law.
All right, Jamie White, how do you see this in the Rayshard Brooks case, where he's got the officer's taser, the officer has a taser, but he's also got his gun. He pulls the gun out of the holster, and after Rayshard Brooks fires the taser at him, he fires his gun at Rayshard Brooks.
Mm-hmm. Well, first, I think we have to be careful not to have like too much accountability to the masses. You know, when we start talking about tasers without the specifics associated with the event, sometimes we might fall prey to bias. In this particular case, the DA, he did talk about the fact that he did not believe there was a threat, but also in his charging decision, from my recollection, he talked about the behavior after the incident. That I think he indicated he did think went to the officer's mens rea. In particular, after Mr. Brooks had been shot twice in the back, the officer kicked him, multiple times while he was down. And reports are that he was using racial epithets. There's further reports that instead of administering CPR initially or rendering any sort of aid, that he simply just hovered over the body until such time as other police officers arrived. So I agree with Holly. I think that, billy clubs, boots, fists, anything is a deadly weapon. And, in this particular case, under a different set of circumstances, I think the officer would have been justified, arguably. But here, we have the weapon's been discharged. He's running. He has his back to the officer. There's two officers, one man, and he still chooses to deliver 3 bullets, 2 which strike Mr. Brooks in the back. And I think that's unreasonable under any standard. Now, clearly, the defense is going to argue that this was, they're going to go for that mass appeal, that this was a deadly weapon, end of story. We can't look any further, and we'll see what the judge and jury has to say about that.
And I just want to note that the defense has come out and made some statements, some written. They're disputing the kicking, and they also said the time between the shooting and rendering aid was 56 seconds, not the 2 minutes. But we'll see. We haven't seen the videotapes. There are 8 videotapes that the DA has, but not all of them have been released yet. So I guess that's one of the factual points of contention that may make the difference here. Monica Lindstrom, does the taser become the key issue in this entire murder charge against Officer Rolfe?
I don't think it's the main issue. The main issue will be in just that split-second decision of what the officer did, because under the law, he has to feel threatened in order to use deadly force, and his use of that deadly force has to be proportionate to what he's seen. So the focus in the trial will actually be in that split second, what the officer was thinking, was it reasonable, that kind of stuff. But what I think we all need to focus on is here going forward, how are we going to classify this taser? You brought it up earlier. It's less lethal, but that's how are officers going to know what to do here? So I think not only each state individually, but we probably need some national guidance in this so it can be consistent across the country. Yes, everything can be a deadly weapon. Are we going to allow officers to use it? And if they've been trained to use that over a gun, are we going to punish them for using the taser? Are we going to take the guns away? Can you use your gun against someone with a taser? I think those are questions that are going to come out of this incident, and they're being talked about right now. So will a jury decide that? No, I don't think so. I think legislators and the public opinion needs to decide that.
All right. In the meantime, this is a case, obviously, we are continuing to follow and track. A lot of developments in it. And as you can see, there are strong arguments on both sides of this one. All right, when we come back, we're going to take a look at an amazing story in San Diego. I mean, incredible heroism, but a tragic circumstance. Video of a dad who put his 2-year-old twin girls in the car and then drives it off a cliff. And amazingly, an officer shows up, saves the children, and saves the father.
Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Julia Janae with your Court TV news break. New tonight out of South Georgia, the 3 men accused in the February 23rd shooting of Ahmaud Arbery. They were indicted by a grand jury today. Police say Arbery was jogging outside in a Brunswick neighborhood when Gregory McMichael and his son Travis McMichael chased him in their vehicle before then fatally killing him. William Bryan was one of the men who captured the deadly incident on his cell phone's camera, and he's accused of trying to illegally confine Arbery. The indictment handed down today charges the men with 9 counts, including malice murder, felony murder, aggravated assault, false imprisonment, and criminal attempt to commit false imprisonment. An arraignment date has not yet been scheduled for the men. And NASCAR driver Bubba Wallace is responding to criticism and backlash that the incident involving a noose in his garage was a hoax. An investigation by the FBI determined the noose found in Wallace's team garage at the Talladega Superspeedway in Alabama over the weekend has been there since last year and was not aimed at NASCAR's only black top circuit driver. Wallace says a member of his crew first brought to his attention that rope that was tied into an apparent noose there in his garage. Take a listen.
They went through the investigation process, went through all their information, and was able to tell me. And so I was definitely felt relieved, and could tell my family that wasn't the case. So yeah, all good, but just simply dealing with facts that were given to me.
NASCAR put out in a tweet that they are thankful the FBI found that this was not an intentional or racist act against one of their drivers. And a pop singer, Justin Bieber, is defending himself with an alibi against claims he sexually assaulted a woman back in 2014. This is in now deleted tweets. A woman going by the name of Danielle claims she was assaulted by Bieber, and this allegedly happened at a Four Seasons hotel after the pop star's performance at South by Southwest. Bieber says there's no truth to the story, and he's got receipts from an Airbnb where he stayed at the time with his then-girlfriend, singer Selena Gomez. He also says the Four Seasons manager confirms he was not on their property at that time. No civil or criminal charges have been made, but this latest tweet from Bieber says he's working with Twitter and the authorities to take legal action. That's it for your Court TV news break. Vinnie, back to you.
That's why you always keep your receipts. I mean, and someone like Justin Bieber, I mean, he's going to be able to prove where he was. I mean, it's not like Justin Bieber can just sneak around with Selena Gomez. I mean, people are going to know where they are, and it's interesting, and we'll obviously continue to follow, see if anything happens, if Twitter or if he files a lawsuit against her, right?
It seems strange that this woman's tweets are now deleted, but yeah, he's doing what he can to track down that woman and see why she was making these, I'm sure in his opinion, slanderous comments.
All right, Julie Janae, thank you so much. All right, up next, folks, this is a story out of San Diego, and a dad puts his two-year-old girls, they're twins, in the car, ends up driving it off of a cliff. You see it on video. I'm giving you a little bit of a warning now, but the great news is there was a hero police officer who saved everyone. Chanley Painter has more.
And a mother was calling in saying her child's father had took her twin 2-year-old daughters in his truck and was threatening to drive off our Coronado Bridge.
The call came at 4:30 in the morning, Saturday, June 13th. The woman was calling about her husband, Robert Bryans, seen here in a Facebook post in Happier Times.
He was also reportedly armed with a handgun.
When police caught up with him, instead of stopping, Bryans sped off, heading right for the cliffs. A local reporter posted the dramatic video capturing the moment Bryans' truck sails off the road, plunging into the ocean.
50, 60 feet below in the water is this truck upside down underwater. We could just see the wheels in the bottom of the truck. My initial thought is, please tell me those girls weren't in that truck, because looking at no way anyone could survive.
Then Jonathan Weiss, a K-9 unit police officer, took action.
Then I remembered, okay, I have a dog leash in my car that happens to be 100 feet.
Other officers arrived and held onto the leash as Weiss rappelled off the cliff.
About halfway down, I kind of got stuck hanging there because I think they were so worried about dropping me. They were holding on too tight, so I'm yelling at them, you gotta just let me go. So they dropped me to the bottom of the cliff.
Officer Weiss saw the trio.
All three of them were getting knocked up against the cliff because of the waves. I could see them going underwater.
Weiss safely swam them back to shore, trying to calm the father.
You know, he couldn't believe he didn't die, and that, yeah, his intention was that he was going to die and his daughters were going to die with him.
Officers rushed the girls to an ambulance and the father was airlifted by helicopter. All three were admitted to the hospital.
So he was arrested from the moment, you know, I got him. In my mind, this guy just committed a horrendous crime. So eventually, once he was taken to the hospital and treated for his injuries and released.
Then Bryans was booked into the county jail on a 13-count complaint, which includes 2 counts of attempted murder, 2 counts of child abduction, 2 counts of child endangerment, making criminal threats, and burglary. Bryans pleaded not guilty to the charges. He is being held without bail and is due in court July 22nd for a readiness conference. Court records show his wife filed for divorce from Bryans in April, citing domestic violence.
All right, there's a lot of different issues floating, but surrounding this story. Jamie White, let's start first with the heroism of this police officer, getting himself down that cliff and then relying upon prior training that he had. And now he's got to save the children, but he knows he's got a father who was trying to kill all 3 of them. That's a precarious position.
Unbelievable, Vinny. And thank you so much for having this piece on tonight. You know, as an African-American man with 3 sons, you know, I've been engrossed like everybody else over the course of the last 6 weeks with what's been going on. But I think if we're going to have a real dialogue about change, we have to acknowledge that the vast majority of police officers are good people, and Jonathan Weiss is a hero, a true hero. I know we use that word sometimes a little bit loosely, but you know, anybody that's ever been trained in any sort of water rescue, you know, you do not go near drowning people. And you know, he just absolutely did what heroes do. So thank you for sharing that story. You know, and I guess just as a side note, you know, again, as we're talking about reform, Vinny, this story, I don't know what could have helped this father, but in a broad sense, you know, I think this man's crazy. I mean, he's not crazy, not guilty crazy, but clearly deranged to act in this manner with his own children. And I just think this highlights that, you know, as we talk about reform in our system, you know, we have to talk about mental health. You know, I mean, it's a component of our system that's been neglected, and you know, whether or not that could have helped this man, who knows? But it's something that I hope that we can talk about going forward.
Yeah, it's a huge component. I mean, we see it in case after case after case. And where is that line, and how can we do things to prevent situations like this? But you're mentioning Jonathan Weiss, the officer. He is the current reigning officer of the year in San Diego for his heroism in another case at a synagogue shooting, being the first officer to arrive and going in there and to stop that shooter. So I think he's going to win back-to-back, and he should, okay? Everyone else should just say, just give it to him now. But now let's get to the criminal case, Monica. The criminal case against this father. How how does that proceed, and what do you think is going to happen? Because Jamie brings up a great point about mental state and everything else, but it seemed like he may have been triggered by, okay, I'm filing for divorce, I don't want to be with you anymore.
Yeah, the whole case is going to come down to his mental stability and whether he has any kind of mental issues. They'll likely have a medical exam and a mental exam right away because his defense attorney will do their job and they'll say, look, he was trying to commit suicide with his two-year-old twin girls. I mean, that is clearly something that is not normal for a parent to do. So they're going to want to evaluate him. And then they're going to go down the road of, did that mental illness affect his ability to make a decision? So was he not in his right mind when he decided to drive off the cliff with them? So that's what the case is really going to focus on, because you've got the video right there. Unless they can somehow show that it was a car accident and he didn't do it on purpose. But I believe when he was speaking to the officer afterwards, he said that he was trying to commit suicide with them. So that's going to go against him as well. I think that the actual criminal case is kind of open and shut because it sounds like he intended to do it. And we saw the video right there. But it's all going to focus on his mental awareness. And at some point, you know, I understand that mental illness and mental health is a very real issue, but every parent that hurts their child ends up using this as a reason. And maybe it's true, but it gets so frustrating in a way. I know this is terrible to say, but in a way, I kind of wish that, you know, the officer wasn't as heroic and maybe left the dad there to, you know, sit in the water and think about it for a while. I know, is that bad to say? Sorry, but
it is. But no, there's people thinking about that right now.
Yeah.
And one decision the officer had to make, though, was he had one child and he had to say, well, if I go save this child and I leave the father with the other child, is he going to take her life? So it was a real issue in the moment as well. Holly, you know, people who've worked in courthouses, like we all have, know that the most volatile of all the courtrooms are the ones dealing with family law issues and divorce and custody, because the emotions are so high. You know, the criminal courts, for the most part, you know, most criminals kind of understand the way it works. The prosecutor's doing his job, police are doing their job, you know, I got caught, whatever. But in family court, emotions run high and things can get dangerous very quickly, like it did here when it was a woman who's saying she's a victim of domestic violence, saying, I don't want to be with you anymore. And that was then a trigger. I mean, it's dangerous.
It certainly is. And Vinnie, how many cases have we set right here and covered on Court TV that are family law cases that bleed into criminal, or vice versa, criminal cases that bleed into family law? This is a travesty. It is not necessarily deplorable that she said maybe the father wouldn't have been rescued. However, this is police of the year. So he definitely went in there and found these two little girls first, pulled them out, and then was acting in auto mode, right? And recovered the father and was doing his job. And what a fantastic story. What an important story right now to cover. While we don't have any margin of error for police officers to be bad cops versus good cops, what a fantastic story to cover with a fantastic cop.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. When we come back, a story that everyone's talking about online. I posted it today involving NASCAR, Bubba Wallace, and the controversy involving the noose or the pull rope that was inside his garage bay at Talladega. We'll hear from you, the 13th juror, when we come back.
Yeah, it was a relief for sure. Being able to talk to them, which I never thought I'd talk to the FBI. But yeah, they went through the investigation process, went through all their information, and was able to tell me. And so I definitely felt relieved, and could tell my family that wasn't the case. So yeah, all good, but just simply dealing with facts that were given to me.
That's NASCAR driver Bubba Wallace, and you know the controversy. I'm sure you know it by now, but one of his team members apparently found what he thought was a noose in his garage, alerted NASCAR. NASCAR then told Bubba Wallace, who never saw it, never went to the garage. He's not even permitted to go to the garage, as the drivers aren't allowed to. But then it blew up, and there was a huge showing of support. And here is video, it turns out, from 2019 showing the noose already there, or the pull rope for the garage. Okay, so it was already there back in 2019. 15 FBI agents went down there to investigate this. And now the fallout. Everyone's got an opinion about this on all different aspects of it. So let's begin with our comment of the day coming from Kylie tonight, who says, I think with our current state of affairs in this country, there was reason for concern here. I'm glad NASCAR took this seriously and pursued an investigation. I'm also glad they listened to this man's concerns, as I do not believe he was trying to gain attention and fame in this situation. Monica Lindstrom, did NASCAR do the right thing here?
Oh, absolutely. I think so. Somebody came up with a complaint, a very real, serious complaint. Whether this complaint would have popped up 6 months ago or popped up now, it's very serious allegation. And so I think NASCAR did the right thing. They needed to investigate, find out what was going on for not only the mental safety of everybody there, but the physical safety for the driver. And although he's not ever there in the garage, for the rest of the crew as well. So I think they did the right thing. They came up with the right conclusion. Their investigation panned out. Do they need 15 or 14 or 15 FBI agents? I don't think so, but at least there was a happy ending, so to speak.
Sharon writes tonight, it was not a noose. It was a grip for pulling the garage door down. I've seen pictures of the same thing in other garages there. NASCAR should have investigated a little before going public. Now they all look like fools. The whole thing was sketchy to start with. Jussie Smollett makes everyone more suspicious now over this kind of thing. Jamie White, let me ask you, when you have a result like this and you have the Jussie Smollett case as well, does that undermine the credibility of potential real future victims?
Anytime you have somebody claiming wrongdoing, lying intentionally, the sky is falling, whether that's somebody claiming they were sexually assaulted or someone claiming that they were a victim of racial discrimination when in fact they were not, that's extremely unfortunate. But I think this was a good day for NASCAR. They got a chance to show their colors. They came out in support of this man in droves, and it was a false alarm, but I think they got a chance to show the world what they're all about, and congratulations to them for their response.
Matthew writes, well, according to his own words, he never officially saw it for himself, so he could be part of a setup that he didn't even know about. Holly Waltman, do you think there's any chance that this was a PR stunt by anyone? And I'm not saying Bubba Wallace, because he never even saw it. People were telling him and feeding him the information.
I'm with Matthew. I'm with Kylie. I think this can be twofold. First of all, the type of people that would have potentially put a noose in this person or this driver's bay are not the type of people that are going to put it in the corner so no one notices it for over a year. It will be apparent. It will be obvious. These people are not quiet. We know that from other demonstrations that we've seen them in. But I also think that there could be an angle of NASCAR trying to get out in front of this. They came out less than 2 weeks ago about the Confederate flag being a part of their races and a part of outside of their races where people park and tailgate, so to speak. So I think it can be both.
Debbie writes, the problem I have is NASCAR put out such a hatred statement before they had facts to back it up. With all the drama going on in Talladega, that just added more fuel to the fire and hate. Shame on you, NASCAR, trying to get attention. If Bubba would not be in NASCAR, I'm positive they would never have taken a stand with BLM, Black Lives Matter. Jamie, we only have a couple seconds here. Do you think if Bubba is not part of NASCAR, does NASCAR say anything about the issue?
Maybe not, that's how change happens, right? Whether it's Jesse Owens or, people come to a situation and they change people's point of view and perspective.
Jamie White, Holly Waltman, Monica Lindstrom, what a great job tonight. Really appreciate your time, your insight. Thank you so much, and stay safe.
You too, Vinnie.
All right, folks, that does it for tonight. We are here every night from 8 to 11, taking you inside the world of crime and justice. In the meantime, have a wonderful night, and don't forget to hug the kids.